I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Bagon. Dragons are almost ubiquitous among human cultures. The details can vary immensely, but in a vast number of cultures, some form of powerful flying reptile is the strongest creature in folklore. Perhaps this is just because, as Captain Kirk said,
like most humans, I seem to have an instinctive revulsion to reptiles.
Alternatively, perhaps so many people imagined such similar monsters because they've all uncovered dinosaur skeletons. Dinosaurs roamed most of the Earth's surface, and with the terrifying fangs of the Tyrannosaurus rex and the enormous wings of Quetzalcoatlus, it's easy to imagine how they could add up to a dragon. Bagon is a small little dinosaur which dreams of being a mighty winged dragon. A pure dragon type, it has the squat proportions of a toddler and an armoured head like a Pachycephalosaurus or another armour-domed dino. Pokemon Ruby tells us, Bagon has a dream of one day soaring in the sky. In doomed efforts to fly, this Pokemon hurls itself off cliffs. As a result of its dives, its head has grown tough and as hard as tempered steel. Sapphire continues on this theme, telling us, Bagon harbors a never-ending dream of one day soaring high among the clouds. As if trying to dispel its frustration over its inability to fly, this Pokemon slams its hard head against huge rocks and shatters them into pebbles. Pokemon Emerald tells us, although it is small, this Pokemon is very powerful, because its body is a bundle of muscles. It launches headbutts with its iron-like skull. And Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green told us, its steel hard head can shatter boulders. It longingly hopes for wings to grow so it can fly. Dreams of flying are obviously common among people. When animals look up and see their airborne brethren, it's easy to suppose that they feel some jealousy too. Was the Velociraptor ever envious of the pterodactyl that danced overhead? I guess we'll never know. The English name combines baby and dragon, hence Bagon. Although I'd always said Bagon until I started researching this podcast. Or like Bagon. Bagon? Similarly, the Japanese name, Tatsube, combines tatsu, which is dragon in Japanese, and the English word baby. As this implies, this is only the first stage of what will become a powerful dragon. First though, it goes through a kind of cocoon phase, when at level 30, Bagon evolves into Shellgon. Wrapped in a white shell-like covering of bone, Shellgon looks like an angry volleyball with only 4 squat feet at the bottom and some eyes peering from a shadow in the front. Pokemon Sapphire explains, covering Shellgon's body are outgrowths much like bones. The shell is very hard and bounces off enemy attacks. When awaiting evolution, this Pokemon hides away in a cavern. The hardened head dome of Bagon now covers the entirety of the monster, and the major transformation is happening within. Pokemon Ruby puts it, inside Shellgon's armor-like shell, cells are in the midst of transformation to create an entirely new body. This Pokemon's shell is extremely heavy, making its movements sluggish. And Pokemon Emerald tells us, it hardly eats while it awaits evolution. It becomes hardier by enduring hunger. Its shell peels off the instant it begins to evolve. The name Shellgon is pretty obvious, combining shell and dragon. The Japanese name is a little more interesting. Komoryu combines ryu, another word for dragon in Japanese, with the verb komoru, to seclude oneself away from the world. As Pokemon Moon tells us, they lurk deep within caves, motionless, neither eating nor drinking. Why they don't die is not known. After spending time as Bagon and Shellgon, dreaming of a future in which they can fly, it seemingly makes sense that the next stage would be called Flygon. This monster, of course, does exist, but is a different third-generation dragon, having evolved from Trapinch and Vibrava. Would-be internet sleuths have deduced that this name may have originally been intended for the Bagon family at a prior time in development, but this is far from a confirmed fact. Either way, that dream of flying comes true when, at level 50, Shellgon evolves into the fearsome Salamence. Salamence is a very traditional medieval western dragon, a fearsome reptilian beastie on 4 legs, blue or green in its shiny form, with red wings and spikes. It is a mighty dragon and flying type, the bone-like protrusions now only on its underbelly, as nothing will be attacking it from above. This reminds me of the Taruk from Avatar, you know, the creature who rules the skies so it never looks up. Pokemon Ruby tells us, Salamence came about as a result of a strong, long-held dream of growing wings. It is said that this powerful desire triggered a sudden mutation in this Pokemon's cells, causing it to sprout its magnificent wings. Pokemon Sapphire tells us, by evolving into Salamence, this Pokemon finally realizes its long-held dream of growing wings. To express its joy, it flies and wheels all over the sky, while spouting flames from its mouth. Pokemon Ultra Sun tells us, overjoyed at finally being able to fly, it flies all over the place, and usually doesn't land until it's completely exhausted and needs to sleep. And lastly, Ultra Moon tells us, thanks to its fervent wishes, the cells in its body finally mutated, and at last it has its heart's desire. Wings. I would love to be able to fly, and to be honest, if I ever got my wish, I'd probably behave exactly like Salamence, just flying around, messing about all day. Of course, Western dragons are rarely depicted as benevolent like their Asian counterparts. While Salamence is happy, the people around it probably aren't. Pokemon Ultra Moon tells us, it flies around on its wings, which have grown in at last. In its happiness, it gushes hot flames, burning up the fields it passes over. This is exactly like the traditional image of a western dragon on a rampage. In a classic story, of course, a knight would come along and slay the dragon, but I prefer the Pokemon version where you come along and make friends with it. The name, Salamence, combines salamander, the real-life amphibians who are often given dragon-like fire powers in folklore, with the suffix ence, maybe coming from vengeance, or violence, or immense. It is interesting that, with a design clearly based on European dragons, 2 of the 3 Japanese names in this family include references to English word. The Japanese name for Salamence is Bowmander, combining the English salamander with bow, or violent. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green tell us, it becomes uncontrollable if enraged. It destroys everything with shredding claws and fire. While Pokemon Sun tells us, when angered, it loses all sense of itself and destroys everything around it. The destruction will continue until Salamence has tired itself out. Salamence lived up to its dangerous name and descriptions. This Pokemon has massive attacking stats and speed, tied to that useful dragon and flying typing. It has the useful ability Intimidate, which lowers foes' attacks, and later gained the frankly broken second ability of Moxie, which boosts its already high attack after every KO. It was a top-tier Pokemon for several generations, and just as that glory looked like it might fade, the 6th generation came along and gave Salamence the ability to Mega Evolve when holding Salamencite into Mega Salamence. With its armoured underbelly and aerodynamic spikes, Salamence always somewhat resembled an airplane. In its Mega form, this is even more pronounced, with the 2 wings fusing into a big moon shape. A single membrane like the prototypical flying wing we often saw in the 50s. The armor plating can now cover the forearms, adding even more aerodynamism. Pokemon Sun tells us, anyone standing in its path gets sliced right in two, while this Pokemon continues its flight without interruption. But Pokemon Ultra Moon tells us, it puts its forelegs inside its shell to streamline itself for flight. Salamence flies at high speeds over all kinds of topographical features. Of course, it wouldn't be a Mega Evolution if we were left with only positive Pokédex entries. No, of course, the transformation is horrifying. Pokemon Moon tells us, Mega Evolution fuels its brutality, and it may even turn on the trainer who raised it. It's been dubbed the Blood-Soaked Crescent. While Pokemon Ultra Sun told us, the stress of its two proud wings becoming misshapen and stuck together because of strong energy makes it go on a rampage. Salamence was always pretty powerful, but as Mega Salamence it has a boost to its already high stats, and the ability Aerialate, which turns any normal type move into a boosted flying type move. Salamence really could rampage like a dragon of old. It could be argued that Salamence is a fairly by-the-numbers dragon, but to that I say, that isn't such a bad thing. Dragons are cool, and this is a fine example of the beasties. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon is by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Writing, producing, and editing is all by me, Luke Summerhays. Funding is provided by lovely listeners on Patreon. If you want to help keep the show online, or even if you just want a convenient place to find links to the other shows my pals and I create, head on over to patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. I love hearing from listeners about your favourite Pokemon too. Get in touch about the next monsters, Bagon and Family, or the Reggies which will be coming after that, on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. And even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Bagon, and remember, I love you too.